Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Mental Detox, where today we're going to be talking about the secrets of self-sabotage. Now, in the moments ahead, we're going to share with you some ideas on how to get out of your comfort zones.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the truth is everybody gets into comfort zones, but it just depends how long you stay in there determines how much they hurt you. So, honestly, wife, have you ever been in a comfort zone?
100%, but that was a while ago.
Of
Not
what?
right now.
And you've hidden that from me and you've never told me.
Yeah, a while ago. I think everyone all have that little moment of, oh, I might just, stay at the same place. I might just doing the same things because I feel comfortable. And I think everybody probably experienced that before, just like me.
And what did you do?
What did I do?
How did you get into a comfort zone?
I would say, if I talk about my previous jobs as a cabin crew, I love this job, but I think for me, it's kind of, it's an industry that I'm very familiar with. So that's why I jump in from one company to another one and to the third one. I love the job. However, that definitely is a zone for me. I feel very comfortable because, I can just put makeup, look cute, and, and I don't have to worry about anything. I can just go on the fly. The shuttle bus will pick me up from my accommodations. Everything get looked after. I go to I go on the fly and I land at the destination. I can go out with the crew or I can do something else, sightseeing and stuff. It's not much thing I need to worry about. So I think that definitely is kind of, if I would classify, that's kind of the comfort zone for me.
A lot of people get into comfort zones.
Yeah.
And there's these small little things that they do and say that keep them in the comfort zone. And you might have heard these in your own language. You might have heard it in other people's language, but people just do little things. They say, I'm not overweight.
Yeah.
I'm not fat, but I'm not my ideal weight. And you start to hear people say these little things and you can start to identify that they're in a comfort zone. They say, well, it's not that I don't really like my job. I just prefer to be doing something else, but it's not bad enough to make me leave.
Yes.
They can be in a relationship and they'll say, well, it's a good relationship, but it's not my ideal relationship. And then you'll hear other things like, well, you know what? It's better to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend than to be single.
Yeah, we heard that a lot.
And people get stuck in these comfort zones. And what happens is when you're in these comfort zones, you start to get a feeling of unfulfilled potential. And one of my clients once said to me, he said, Daniel, I feel that I'm operating at about 40% of my potential. And the problem is with these comfort zones, the comfort zone can be so good and so easy to live within that you think to yourself, I don't really need to change. But it starts to eat you away on the inside. It starts to eat away at your self-esteem and your levels of self-worth.
And I think also kind of preventing you from growing as well and preventing you from learning new things and settle down in the, status quo. That's it.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, Ben Jackson, Simon Miller, Laura Bernard, Julian, welcome, Nikki, Ben Price, good to see you there, Zach Chen. So how do people get into a comfort zone? Where do they start? What happens? What is the comfort zone? What is it, in your opinion?
In my opinion, just a place or a state that I feel comfortable. If I out of this area, I feel not safe. I don't feel I'm in control. But when I'm in this little circle, I feel very safe and comfortable.
So what happens is you get into an area where you're comfortable. It's not uncomfortable. It's not what you truly want, but things aren't bad enough to move yet.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things that I've learned over the years that I'd like to give you now. Normally what happens is we get into a comfort zone.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden we're forced to change. And there's three things that really stand out to me is that the first thing that starts to move us out of the comfort zone is we start to experience boredom. So we're in this relationship, it's not satisfying, and we get bored. And you might start to look at the legs of another woman. You might start to look at the chest of another man.
Yep.
And you might even just do little subtle things. You might be in a job, but you're bored with the job. So you find your days that you're searching the internet, looking for new possibilities. You're on monster.com and you're checking out the salary expectations of other roles.
Yeah.
So out of boredom, you can start to move out of these comfort zones.
Yeah.
I've also found that all of a sudden you get a new idea and you set a new goal for yourself.
Yes.
And this normally happens around about December. We're coming into January and people start to get excited about New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And they set new goals. So they start to feel a need to move out of the comfort zone. And then there's a third time that happens very rarely. And it's a real shame because it happens so rarely. But there's normally an event in somebody's life, and it could be an event like we're going through right now, coronavirus.
Yes.
It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be the bankruptcy of a business that you're working with. And out of absolute necessity, somebody's forced to change. So if you're going through your life right now and you're bored with what you're doing, you could be in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Maybe you've set a new goal and you know that it's time to move. Or perhaps out of necessity, you have to move. Well, normally what happens following this is you've got to do one of three things. And there's only three things that you can do.
Yep.
Is when it's time to move out of the comfort zone, you can keep doing what you've always done. But if you keep doing what you've always done,
you're having the same result.
You're going to get the same result.
Yes.
You're going to be with the same person. You're going to wake up to the same bad breath every day. You're going to wake up to the same hairy back every day. You can keep doing that, but you're still in the comfort zone. A lot of people, when it comes to relationships, they're with a partner that they're with right now, but they end up going back to an old lover. So instead of doing something new, they go back to what they were doing in the past and they say, this time, I'm just going to give them more attention.
Yeah.
This time, we're just going to spend more time together. And this time, we're going to do it right. But the interesting thing is it didn't work in the first place for certain reasons.
Yes.
And people don't tend to change.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Actually, we sing a lot in our client as well. They came to us, they talk about their problems, and then they, at the end, they still going back to the same person, which is they think is not the right person for them. And then at the end, the result is still the same. It's still the same.
So if you do what you've always done, you're going to get more of what you've always got.
Yeah.
And if you go back to what you're doing before, you're just going to get more of that again. And there's a Turkish proverb that says, it doesn't matter how far you've walked down the wrong path, stop and go back. You also know that if you keep digging a hole and there's no water there, it doesn't matter how deep you dig the hole, there's never going to be water. It doesn't matter how good a hole digger you are and how much technology you have.
Still no water.
There's still no water.
Yeah.
So the only option there is to do something new.
Yeah.
And if you try something new, you'll get a different result.
Yeah.
But a couple of things tend to happen when you try new things. The comfort zone is also called homeostasis. And I want you to imagine homeostasis as equivalent to the temperature of your body. So homeostasis, the temperature of our body is about 37 degrees.
Yep.
And at 37 degrees, this is about the normal temperature of the body. And what happens is during illness, we might get a fever. And during a fever, the body temperature starts to heat up. And if your body's temperature increases by as little as 10%, you go into what's called a hyperprexic state. You move outside of that comfort zone and the body starts to cook. And what happens is if you change directions in your life, all of a sudden you've moved to a new zone where you're not familiar with it. You start to panic.
Yep.
You start to stress. You start to sweat. And what happens because of discomfort, you want to go back to the comfort zone. And this is like the body. When the body gets too hot, you try to cool your body back down, back to 37 degrees. And this is back into homeostasis. Now, if things get really cold and you get a fever, but this time the body starts to cool down, you start to experience hypothermia. And you start to experience hypothermia as the body drops below about 10% of the natural body temperature.
Wow.
And what we do is we tend to try to heat the body back up.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is we just heat the body back up to try to get it back up into the comfort zone. Now, this is a normal function of the body.
Yep.
So let's imagine this in a career. You're in a comfort zone and you decide that you're not making enough money.
Yeah.
And you set a goal to make more money. And what happens as soon as you start to increase your income by as little as 10%, you start to go into that hyperprexic state again. But what happens now is you've got more money than you had before. So you start to go into self-sabotaging behaviors.
Yeah.
We say that your expenses rise to meet your income. And what you'll find is if you were earning $50,000 in the past, and now your income is $70,000, you'll probably find that you're still broke. The things you buy get more expensive. The credit card maxes out faster. The house you live in is more expensive. And all of a sudden at $70,000, you're no better off than when you're at 50. Your debt level increases. So what happens is we start to go into sabotaging behaviors. We get this money and all of a sudden we spend it because we're not used to having it, and we get back into that comfort zone. The same thing can happen is if you're running a business, if you're in a career and all of a sudden you lose your job, what happens is your income drops. And let's say you're earning $50,000 and it drops down to $30,000. What happens is you start to go into scrambling behaviors and you try to get your income back up to where it was before. But notice you're not trying to go above where it was before. You're just trying to get it back to where it was before. And this is all part of self-sabotage. And we have to be very mindful of the comfort zone as we start to set new goals, as we start to set new directions. And I'm sure these things have happened to you. So have you seen yourself doing this? Have you had a goal and then you started to sabotage?
If I would share with you guys is that, if I'm talking about my job as a former cabin crew, I remember in our company, we used to do the evaluation every 6 to 12 months, see if they're entitled to do the upgrade. So I remember one time the company opened the application online, said that, we now open for the business class for the economy crew to apply. And that time I was like, wow, that's really good. I'm very excited about it. And just before I about to submit the application, I start having the little noises. I start asking myself, am I ready to do the extra work? Because, in the economy, you only have to serve chicken and beef. That's it. And then your job pretty much, half of them already done. But in the business class, you need to take more attentions, and you need to do the dining on demand. So I'm not quite sure I'm ready to do those extra work. And, I start asking myself, am I ready to be a junior in the business class? So that means that I probably won't have more opportunity to swap to a good flight. So which means I probably need to do more just turn around flight, which is really boring, so all these little noises. And I just decided, I'm probably not 100% ready yet. So I pick up the phone and call sick for the flight, and then add me more sick day, which means I won't be entitled to apply for this position. So that is, self-sabotage behavior.
Jacqueline, thank you for sharing there. Jacqueline was saying that they were just talking about this topic 2 days ago, and it's one of the favorite topics. Jacqueline, it is so subtle. These little things that cause sabotage, and especially getting in the comfort zones. And one of the things that I've noticed in my life is that sometimes it's as subtle as sleeping in. So what you do is you set a goal and you say, I want to get up in the morning. I'm going to get it up at 6 o'clock. And then what will happen is the alarm will go off at 6 a.m., but you don't get out of bed till 6:30. And it's very subtle. And nobody would truly ever call you out just for sleeping until 6:30, because we all know you got to have 8 hours sleep. Well, not everybody needs 8 hours sleep, but we start to justify it. And it's just these little things. It's even like putting a little bit of sweetener in your coffee. You go on a diet and all of a sudden you put a little bit of sweetener in your coffee, and it's just a little bit. It's just a couple of grains of sugar. Just a couple. It's not going to kill you, is it?
No.
But what happens is just this subtle self-sabotage. Another one that we see people doing, Jacqueline, is that they will just stay up a little bit too late. And what happens is they want to get up in the morning nice and early, so they have that hour in the day all by themselves. But instead of going to bed at 10 o'clock, they just watch a little bit of TV just till 10:30.
Yeah.
And then because they're business people and they're entrepreneurs and they're building their business, they just check their email just before they go to bed at 10:30.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is you get a hit of dopamine, and that dopamine runs through your brain and through your body, and you're still alert for about another 17 minutes. So by 11 o'clock, you're still awake.
Yeah.
So there's just these very little subtle things that cause us to self-sabotage, but they keep us in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to have new ways to get out of the comfort zone.
Yes.
So what have you tried? You've been in a comfort zone before. What have you tried?
I think the first thing for me, I definitely rewrite my goals. For me, I need something that keep constantly reminding me what I really have to do. So for me, I found that writing the goal for me is really helpful, writing down the goals every day. So kind of, put imprint into my unconscious mind. This is what you have to do every day. This is the goal you want to hit. And I think also having a good partner to support you, I think is very important.
Is that me?
I hope so.
No, I should be hoping so.
Yeah.
If you're hoping, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think having a very supportive spouse or the partner is very important because, I share the goals, what I would like to achieve. And I hope, I will tell him to hold me accountable. So that is like, we grow together.
What if you asked me to hold you accountable, but I started to bring you breakfast in bed?
Oh, you never done that.
But what if I did?
We'll see.
Would it be a little bit of sabotage?
I think on my birthday would be different.
See, what happens is your partner starts to set a new direction. And let's say your partner wants to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and you think it'd be quite nice for them to have breakfast in bed. So these little sabotaging behaviors from your partner can also hold you back. And it seems nice and romantic, but it keeps them stuck where they are. So you've always got to check in and make sure the person that you're with is not a crab, which is really, really essential.
Yeah.
So what Jacqueline's saying here is that what you're saying is so true. We all want extra money. Jacqueline, let me just share a little idea here. In emotional intelligence, there's an area of motivation, and there's 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. And what happens is we can set a goal. And see, what we say is a goal, is a dream at the start, unless we put plans into place. And once we set this new direction, we then have to make the commitment to put in the extra energy and effort.
Yeah.
And it's when it comes to making more money, people say, I'm not prepared to put in the extra time and effort that it really requires to make the extra money. And this is a problem with emotional intelligence. So working with about 4,500 people globally now, we find one of the things that causes people to get stuck in comfort zones is their level of emotional intelligence, and especially in the area of motivation. So I want you to imagine that motivation is the fuel in your tank. And depending on how much fuel you have in the tank will determine how far you can go. And most people have a little bit of fuel in the tank. But what happens, it runs out really, really quickly. So in terms of getting out of these comfort zones, there's really 3 major areas that we have to discover to start with. The first is self-awareness.
Yes.
And self-awareness, in my opinion, is understanding why you think and feel the way that you do. And your thoughts predict 95% of your feelings. So you might have this thought about making more money, but the sheer thought of it all of a sudden makes you panic. You start to think, whoa, I've never earned that type of money in my life. I've never earned $100,000. And you start to panic and you start to think, am I worthy of it?
Yeah.
Do I deserve it? Can I handle the responsibilities that go along with it? And this is where the self-sabotage begins. And that's what Nini was talking about with the head noises before.
Yeah, 100%. Even if I can share with you by doing this Facebook Live before Long time ago, Daniel always inviting me, come along and do a Facebook Live. But, I always have that little noises and that, oh, what am I going to talk about? What if I didn't look good in the camera? Blah, 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 a little thing. And then that is kind of, like I stuck in my comfort zone. I feel like I can just behind Daniel's back, just supporting.
Squeezing my pimples.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think another thing is very important to get out of the comfort zone is really taking the actions. You need to take the action and keep moving forward. That's really important.
Well, Tamara, Christine, and Charlie, thanks for joining us also. When it comes to actions, should we take massive 10x actions? Is that the way to solve our problems?
No, I think if you just have an improvement 1% every day, imagine 1 year, 365 days, you improve 365%, So that's how we started. Start from a little bit, and then you have that momentum, keep going. So for me today, I feel I improved 1% because I'm sitting here and doing this with Daniel together. So that give me a confidence, and I feel like I start taking the action. I start moving forward, and in the future, I can do better than this time.
So when it comes to self-awareness, it's very important that you understand where you are right now. So most people, in my opinion, know where they want to be. If you were thinking about what you want from a relationship, you could articulate pretty clearly what you want. In terms of the size of your business, the amount of sales that you make, the amount of income that you produce, I believe that right now you would be pretty clear on what you want. The next step gets a little bit harder. It's to be able to articulate where you are right now. And about 36% of the population have enough emotional intelligence to clearly articulate where they are right now. And this is the ability to articulate your strengths, which for most people is pretty easy. But the majority of the population have troubles articulating their weaknesses. And this is where a lot of people get stuck at the very start of their journey. And this is emotional intelligence. And what I'd recommend is getting very clear on what's holding you back right now. And don't try to make quantum leap changes. Don't try to go from a $100,000 business to $1 million business. What you've got to be able to do, like Nini was saying, is you want to just increase by 1% per day. So go from earning $100,000 to 100,001. And then 100,002, and just keep going up little bit by little bit. And what happens is it's less shock on your body. And you won't start to sabotage. You won't start to feel that you're constantly falling short. And that's one of the challenges that I've had over the years, is that I've set these big, grandiose goals that are so huge, 10x, big, hairy, audacious goals, that I've always set myself up for failure from the start. Because subconsciously, it's not possible to achieve such a big quantum leap. So what we do is we just have small incremental improvements every day. So once you work on your self-awareness, you then got to start to move and work on your self-regulation. And this is your ability to control your thoughts and your feelings, because as Nini mentioned before, your thoughts can take over. They can run away on you. And all of a sudden you're so far away from your goal because of the thoughts and feelings that you've had.
100%.
So what advice have you got there?
I think to me is that have that ability of, articulate when you have that negative thought about to coming in, write it down. That's what I do, write it down. What did I say to myself, and how can I change it immediately? What can I do it differently? What if next time I encounter the same situation, what can I do it differently? It's just a little bit reminder for me. For me, I'm the person type of, if I have that moments coming in, I would like to just write it down on the paper and give me a reminder.
So what we call this in performance enhancement is we call this the Hawthorne Effect. And here's a great idea. You can start to manage your thoughts and emotions more effectively just by writing them down. And the act of writing it down enables you to now dissociate from it. You say, oh, that's what it is. And you get to step back and you look at it. And all of a sudden you're back in control, because they say it's not what you know that hurts you. It's what you don't know. And just by bringing these thoughts and feelings to the front of your mind, it puts you back in control.
Yeah.
And control is the key when it comes to self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Now, you also need to increase your levels of motivation. Now, everybody's motivated. Do you know why?
Why?
Because there's two things all of us must do every single day.
Breathe.
Breathe, absolutely. But why do we wake up in the morning? We wake up in the morning to make more money.
That's true.
So everybody's motivated by the same thing. We have to make more money. We live on an economical planet. You've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
You've got credit cards that are due. You've got fuel that needs to go in your car. You've got food that needs to go into your belly and your children's belly.
Mm.
And how do we make more money? Well, we sell more stuff. Some of us are in sales. Other people say, Daniel, I'm not in sales. You're crazy. Well, you're in sales because what you do is you sell your time and somebody buys your time off you for a lot of money or a little bit of money. So everybody's in sales, and it just determines how much of your time you can sell at determined prices. So all of us, you got to wake up in the morning and you got to make more money. And how do you make more money? You got to sell more stuff. And so you got to have the motivation to be able to move out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And what happens is if you create a proven track record, like Nini was saying before, if you just get 1% better every single day, you'll start to get on a roll. And it takes about 95% of your mental energy just to begin.
Yeah.
So at the start, it is always incredibly hard, but the longer you do it and the longer you can sustain that momentum, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So think about your motor vehicle. Even if it's on a flat surface, what happens is you got to put your foot on the accelerator and make sure you take your foot off your brake, because a lot of people are driving around with their handbrakes on. And you start to cruise and you start to build up speed, you start to build up momentum. And what you can eventually do is you can take your foot off the accelerator and the car and the vehicle just starts to cruise along.
Yeah.
But most of the energy is required at the start. So build momentum, have resiliency, and this will increase your levels of motivation. And this is how you start to get out of those comfort zones. And this is how you can stop self-sabotage.
Yeah. I think one more thing is that definitely the disciplines. You have to have that disciplines. Yeah.
Why do you have to have discipline?
Because if you don't have the discipline, you probably will do this thing. Like maybe today I feel very motivated. I do what I have to do. And the next day I feel like, oh, I don't feel I'm doing it. I might just quit. I might just wait for another 2 days. And then you start doing that. You have to do consistently. You have to have that discipline, something that you have to review every day, something you have to, learn, to improve yourself. I think this is something that you have to do every day. You cannot stop. Yeah. Discipline. Very important.
Discipline's important. And there's a great story of a man, and he bought a dog and he had to train his dog. And every time he came home and he walked into his house, he found that the dog had shat on the floor. And so every day he'd come home and he'd find a shit on the floor and he'd slap the dog. And then he'd throw the dog out the window into the backyard.
Is that Mew Mew?
It's not our dog. It'd fall about 13 stories. And so what happened was every day the owner had the same problem. He'd come home, there'd be a shit on the floor, and he'd slap the dog on the ass and he'd throw it out the window. And one day he came home, the dog had shit on the floor. It saw the owner and it jumped out the window.
Oh my gosh.
All by itself. See, what happens is you have to be consistent in life. And you have to do things repetitively over and over and over again.
Yes.
So once you start, you can't stop. And if you do stop, what happens is you'll send an inconsistent message to your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And this is where all of your behaviors are generated from. So we appreciate that you've joined us today. Sam Evans, thanks for joining us. Kenny Faulkner, Tamara, Christine, Charlie, and Jacqueline. We appreciate that you've been here. And we will see you on the upcoming episode of Mental Detox. But what Nini's got for you now is a final thought. And what's that final thought to send our guests away with today?
Oh, great questions. I think, I would like to share with everybody is that be tough, to be, can you help me?
No, I can't. I can't do it for you. You got to be tough.
That's true. Okay. I think from what the information that we have shared to you guys today, apply some of the idea that you think would be most useful for you, and then you're going to see the result in your life. Yeah.
Excellent. Kylie Backer, thanks for joining us there. Ladies and gentlemen, like Nini was saying before, incremental improvements.
Yeah.
Just do a little bit every day, build momentum. And once you've got momentum, then you can take your foot off the accelerator just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to master these small things.
Yeah.
And what happens, and Les Brown once said, if you do what is easy, life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, and this is what Nini's saying, if you do what is tough and necessary, then life will eventually get very easy.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Ciao. Have a great day.
Thank you.